Welcome to In Focus, and I'm your host Zan Azlee. This week we have a very special guest on the show, Cherish Leow. She's actually one of our producers who produces the program Gadget Nation, which you can catch on Awani every Friday nights at 8:30. She recently went to an event in Singapore organised by Google, and she came back with a special documentary for us on In Focus. Cherish,
hi,
how
Zan.
are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me on In Focus.
It's very good to have you. Can I shake your hand?
Yep, sure.
All right. Okay. Tell us about this special documentary that you've produced for In Focus. It's about the startup community.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about startups.
Yeah. Well, basically, startups, if you want to compare with corporation, like the traditional companies that we know it, startups, they can move really fast because it consists of a smaller team. Normally, the founders, they will call their team the A team because those are the best people that they know and they put together to build the company that, and also at the same time to build the products that they think will be able to disrupt a certain market. So they scale really fast. That's the point of a startup, basically. Scale really fast, they move on faster than a traditional company.
Okay, so now the first segment that we're going to be watching, right? The first segment we'll be watching. Tell us a little bit about it. What's it about?
The first segment, basically, we are looking at startup stories. So because during my stay in Singapore, I get to meet up with some really bright and talented founders and also founding teams. So I spoke to them and just to get a little bit and learn a little bit about what is the journey is like starting a company. So that's basically what the package is about.
Okay, so with your permission, can we now watch the story?
Yes, we may.
Yes, we may.
If I were to ask you, what do you want to change in the world? What would your answer be? Now let the question sink in and think about it for a second. In this segment, we are going to explore the story of entrepreneurs who keep on moving forward despite hurdles.
I hit failure at least once a week, and there's no choice. We will get the product out there, and sometimes we get feedback that hey, this thing doesn't work so well, and yes, sometimes we do have to lose face, but it's fine because at the end of the day we go back and we look at the data that we have, and we know that okay, this didn't work, but from that, we gain some insights and we launch something else a week later with those insights. And we know as a result of that, our traction is growing. And so internally, we know step by step, by small step, that our traction is growing. What people see is the outside thing, where sometimes, hey, this didn't work, why is that not there anymore? You know? So as long as internally we know that we're moving forward.
I guess being in a startup is a roller coaster, and every day you are succeeding and failing at the same time. You cannot distinguish the same. Every day you experience some great feedback, some great experience, and at the same time your company is close to be bankrupt.
So we've previously had 2 products before this one that didn't work, and we quit too late. We know that now. We wasted months of our time. So, and I think most of the time you know it's not working and you just haven't got the confidence to quit because you've put so much of your time into it. So it's about, again, moving fast, moving quickly, being willing to kill things that aren't working, and just being really honest and open with yourself and with your team and say, this isn't working, what is working, what have we heard could work? That's the thing that's we have to do, and we're getting better at that. We're being more open when things aren't working and killing features.
A lot of times startups get caught up with the hype on what seems to be trending or sexy or cool or fun, but I get a lot of satisfaction meeting up with founders who are actually solving a pain point that they personally face or they have seen in the industry that they've been working on.
So when people have that motivation, when people have that flexibility to do what they believe in, I feel that's a very powerful motivation, and the passion drives it, and new innovations come up from there. Yeah.
I think life is short. You might as well do something interesting, and you might as well go and try and build something of real scale.
It's not necessarily about money, it's not necessarily about those tangible things, but I think it's just about finding that meaning that makes you kind of tick in a way.
You know, I have to say that entrepreneurship is an experience, it's a journey, right? There's no real right or wrong tips or advice, honestly. I think whatever is happening to me right now is a product of what's happening for the past few years in my startup journey. So if there's only one advice that I would give is, I would say that it takes time. You know, get an internship if you can in the startup. It takes time. My internship was in the bank. My internship was in DFS, completely irrelevant to whatever I'm doing right now. So along the way, you get so much advice. Some of them could be right, some of them could be wrong. But as time goes by, you know, you have the right mind to actually know who is giving you the right advice.
One of the mentors, he was mentioning that startup life is like a roller coaster, right? At the time I was wondering, because previously I was looking for a startup, I never felt it. But I was saying how it could be. But as a co-founder, when you're seeing all the business operation that happens, at the time you know exactly it's a roller coaster ride. Because at some day you'll be very, very happy, okay, you're going to close a deal or something, but the next day that it may get cancelled. So you should be ready for those things. Because we felt in a real life in the past 6 to 7 months, like we felt this, we are in the roller coaster ride.
I didn't come into this necessarily wanting to be involved in startup or the startup scene or anything like that. I wanted to do something that was huge. And I've run businesses in the past. I had a clothing company. I've done all sorts of bespoke work for other people and stuff. And we wanted to build something that was the potential of, you know, being worth hundreds of millions. So, hence the reason, yeah, we started Tragico.
What is your startup story?
So, we're back on In Focus with Cherish Leow. Okay, so that was the first segment that we saw just now before the break. Now, the second segment, you actually get advice, right? You meet mentors and people can give advice.
And VCs.
Yeah. Tell me some of the people that you met. Were they famous, popular people in the industry?
Well, the interesting part is because of the high growth of more and more, like in the emerging markets, not just emerging markets, around the world, there are more and more people start to get interested in starting a company, and also at the same time, the VCs and angel investors, they are looking at companies to invest in. And especially for technology segment, when we talk about startups, most of the time we would relate back to the technology industries because we see a lot of success stories like Google, previously Facebook. They are now bigger companies. They consider as already a major tech company. And so they inspired more young people, not just young people actually, a lot of people from different walks of life. They start to think that probably I also have a good product that I can help to introduce to the market and probably with potential to disrupt the industry. So the people that I spoke to, some of them, they come from Silicon Valley, and then some of them are Singaporeans, and then some of them are from Malaysia, and some of them has some backgrounds in different various markets in Southeast Asia, also China and Japan. Yeah.
Oh, let me ask you this question. Now, in the industry, right, how tight-knit is the community? How tight-knit is the industry? And this advice that's being given, is it very controlled? Are people very, Malaysia, kedekut with advice? Or are they very generous and they help everybody?
I think what you asked just now is more like about the mindset, right? Are they helping everybody, or is it an open kind of community where people share ideas and throw ideas and giving advices? In Southeast Asia right now, there is this similarity in terms of culture and mindset where we don't really like to share ideas among entrepreneurs especially. But then we see a growth in terms of community where the tech community themselves, they are starting to come out together and share the failures and success at the same time. But when I talk about success, it is still lacking when we are talking about bigger success stories like getting a big exit or acquired by Google or any other bigger companies. We're still looking forward to more success stories in that sense, you know, get a big exit and stuff like that. But then there are more and more companies coming out right now that is looking at internet and mobile. Because in emerging markets, we have a really high growth potential in terms of a mobile and internet market. Right?
Okay, so let's just go ahead and watch the segment, see what these people have to say, right?
Tons of questions tend to repeatedly ring inside the head of people with interest to start a company or people already in the startup business. We compiled several startup advices that hopefully can help answer a few questions needing to be answered.
I think there's a lot of opportunity regionally, so across the region, and entrepreneurs will tend to think just in their one country. And that they, you know, can dominate and then move to another country, and I think that's very difficult. I think you need to be thinking international, multi-country from the start. However, I don't recommend trying to attack a global problem. It's a regional is where, you know, you can offer the most value, you have the most, you know, understanding of what's going on in the region. I think that's the best place to go after.
I think for those entrepreneurs, right, I would actually tell them that if they really want to make money, they should by all means go out and do it. Because it's a fair game, right? Some people do it for the love, some people do it for the money. At the end of the day, what drives you? If money drives you, great. Find a way to make a lot of money, right? Some people are just very motivated by that. But then we have to clearly distinguish, right, between starting companies, building companies, and starting a business. You could make a lot of money running a simple business, be it a trading business or a F&B business, and that's a perfectly respectable career path. You know, you could be adding value to the people coming to your business, making a lot of money from it, being very happy. That's fine. Or you could say, let me start a company, let me disrupt an industry, let me change the status quo. I may not make a lot of money now, but in the long run, yes. I mean, entrepreneurs also need to realize that the world doesn't run on love and fair share. Money has to be made, right? You know, you have to find a way to make your businesses sustainable. So it's really what drives people, and whatever they're passionate about, I think they should go do it. So for some people, their passion is money. I think they should go ahead, pursue their passion, and make as much money as possible if that makes them happy.
I would say majority of companies don't live more than 3 years, right? So you need to have incremental movements. You need to survive every year. You need to, you know, you need to get to the next stage before you even have a chance to think big. But you do need to know where you want to go, right? Because I would say 90% of companies, if you talk to most companies in Singapore or anywhere else, they will not get funded. So what? If you don't get funded, are you going to stop? No, right? You're going to keep going, right? Now, you may not think that big, but you think micro. You think, I got to get this client, I got to get step by step, right? If I can't raise money, I'll borrow from a bank, I'll raise it from my suppliers, I'll get it somewhere, how, you know, somehow. If my product doesn't sell, I do consulting to feed, and then I'll keep selling, right? You do whatever it takes to get there.
There's a lot of new technology companies sprouting up everywhere. There's an amazing amount of VC funding and incubators and accelerators and everything that's really important for that technology scene to take off. But again, it was like that chicken and egg. Everyone's talking about success, but you don't immediately find success. So what are the steps that you take to find success? And part of that is failure. And particularly in an Asian context, I don't think that's a comfortable topic. And so we really wanted to normalize it and start talking about it and saying, hey, what you're going through and these emotions, you don't have to keep them hidden. Everyone is feeling exactly the same way. You're 5 months in or a year into your startup, you're not going to make it immediately. You're not Instagram with 12 people and $1 billion. It's okay. Let's talk about that.
To the mass market, to the consumers out there who are not in the field, it seems to me that entrepreneurship has been glamorized into something that, with a snap of fingers, you can easily, you know, spend 3 months, build something, build a mobile app, web app, and get sold. And that has created, yes, a new bunch of aspiring entrepreneurs or rather people aspiring to be entrepreneurs who aspire to be rich. And I don't like that. I don't agree with that, because to me, entrepreneurship should be about transformational ideas that impact the world in a good way.
Alright, welcome back to In Focus. Cherish Leow. Let me ask you this, Cherish. You decided to go to Singapore for this documentary. Why Singapore?
Well, because previously, before I go ahead with my documentary in Singapore, I did a documentary in Klang Valley itself, not Malaysia, but Klang Valley, because Klang Valley is one of the earliest places that we see in Malaysia that has a growing number of community. Like they have monthly meetups and weekly meetups. And Singapore is the reason why is because I heard a lot of people or entrepreneurs and also investors or mentors in Malaysia. They told me that Singapore is so vibrant and the energy is really so high. The community is so well knitted that you should check it out. So that's why I decided that why not I go and speak to some mentors, VCs and startup founders in Singapore to find out a little bit more about the Singaporean startup community.
Now, Singapore is considered the leader in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Okay, why is that? Where does Malaysia come in?
Malaysia, well, a lot of times, what I learned is that in Singapore, because if you want to start a company or you want to get a visa, it's basically much easier comparing to Southeast Asian countries, other countries basically. In Thailand, not really that easy. That's what I heard. And then Malaysia itself, I believe they are also a lack of the kind of incentives that the Singaporean government is giving. Because if I'm not mistaken, if you want to start a company, the government, they would pay up to 75% of investment in your company. And then later on, if you want to buy back the stake from the government, you can do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so basically you can own your company after a few years, after you have your own money, revenue start coming in, you have your customer base. So you can do that.
Okay, so people from outside of Singapore and the rest of Southeast Asia, they're actually converging in Singapore, coming together in Singapore.
Not just Southeast Asia. At the same time, there are more and more people, you can say VCs or mentors or serial entrepreneurs, they are starting to come in from Europe and USA as well to Singapore.
Okay, cool. And we'll be seeing this in the next segment, right?
So this next segment, basically, we are looking at why Singapore would become a startup hub, as people say it is, becoming a startup hub, and at the same time, what are the certain hurdles that there is if Singapore want to move forward as a startup community? Like we mentioned earlier in the previous segment, like the mindset, the similarities in terms of culture, yeah.
Okay, so let's just watch the segment. All right.
The global startup activity is warming up rapidly. In this region, Singapore is often perceived as a hub in breeding new startups. Does Singapore have the perfect formula to nurture the next wave of successful startups?
You know, the startup scene in Singapore feels like it's accelerating. So there are a lot more players in the market's broader, it's deepening. Success stories, I think, are important to share. So the more success stories like Play Mula are out there, the more they can demonstrate that it's possible. If you've got a great idea and you're committed to it, you can execute on that, but you're not alone. The main message is you're not alone.
You know, for an ecosystem to really thrive, I would define it as having an absorptive capacity for, let's say, someone who is out of a job or out of the first startup. You know, whether the ecosystem is big enough or deep enough to absorb that talent pool, right? So, you know, we're not really seeing that kind of stage of maturity in Singapore yet, but the interest is definitely huge, right? Whether it's from top down, from the government, or bottom up, from the people itself.
There's a generation that's still in control of the money here, in family businesses in particular, that wants to see big success first before they invest. But we are seeing a new economy developing. We will always need food, agriculture, we will always need hotels, and we'll always need oil palm plantations. But I think that once the older generation who control the money see that there is real business to be made around digital technology, then I'm sure they will back that younger generation too.
I was based in San Francisco for a while. In fact, I go there for a couple of months every year. And definitely, you know, there's a difference in the community, in the sense that I would say Singaporeans are a little more less naive, right? We are actually very focused on solving a problem, and it's this lack of naivety sometimes which actually leads to us being very constrained to certain ideas, and that leads to us being very critical of ideas as well.
I think Singapore-based entrepreneurs and even Singaporeans, they are now looking for meaning in life, you know, regardless of age. In fact, we are seeing a movement where younger people are now immediately entering into a self-actualizing stage and not waiting till they are 50 or 60 to give back, right? So it is this group that really interests me as a social entrepreneur and someone who wants to mainstream social entrepreneurship in general.
Singapore is an interesting place. There's a lot of people from all over the world that seem to be here. Given Singapore's history, and culture, Singaporeans, I think, see the world a little bit differently than perhaps I see it. Whether that makes me weird, I don't know. But in saying that, I have met some incredible people here. I'm based out of the Hub, which is a co-working space for social entrepreneurs, and you find people that are quite passionate and excited about what they do, all come together under one building and try and create change in whatever shape or form.
You know, there are a lot of events happening, you know, for every different niche. So if you're a developer, they've got events that go right into the platforms as well as the languages that you know, people develop on. There are events pertaining to the investor community, there are events pertaining to the startup community. So it's very vibrant. There are always people coming together, and there's always activity happening. And we're very lucky because a lot of the investors and their funds are all based here. So getting access to the right investors is not as difficult as most other parts of the region. You know, so I think this makes the local ecosystem here very vibrant and very upbeat.
Welcome back, Cherish. The stories you got from Singapore, very, very interesting. Thank you so much.
Zan.
Now, do you have any last words that you want to leave us with?
Well, I believe that 2013 we will see more growth and more startups coming in the scene. Like in the past year, Malaysia itself, we see PictoChat, we see MyTaxi, we see Taximonga. They've been making waves, they have been winning awards, so definitely, hopefully their success story in some sense, they haven't get an exit yet, but still they get a lot of traction, meaning that they have their own customer base, they have people that is loyal to the product. So hopefully their story will be able to inspire more people with ideas that will take up the challenge and then leverage on the opportunities that internet and mobile space in this region is offering. And at the same time, if you want to start a company, please not just looking at Malaysian market, look at Southeast Asian market instead, because we share similarities in terms of culture and mindset. At the same time, the diversity itself, it would offer a much more interesting space for you to start something.
Okay, now you're also actually producing a special documentary, a two-part documentary, right?
Yep.
On startups and all this.
Yep.
When is it going to be? It's going to be on Awani?
It's going to be on Awani on the 16th and 23rd of February.
What time?
The time will be 8:30 p.m. It's a Saturday. I'm not sure whether you'll be going out, but then hopefully you guys will be sitting in for.
Well, now they know when the show is. I'm sure nobody's going to go out.
Hopefully so. Thank you, Zan.
Okay, thank you so much for being on the show. Can I shake your hand again? Thank you very much. So yeah, that's it for this week's In Focus. Make sure to tune in again next week for more stories on In Focus with me, Zan Azlee.